Señores de La Lata, bienvenidos. Estamos en un close-up muy especial porque llega aquí uno de los talentos televisivos y también cinematográficos más importantes del planeta. Su nombre es Paul Brown. How are you, man?
How you doing?
Welcome to La Lata.
Thank you for inviting me.
Maybe somebody are asking himself, who is Paul Brown?
I'm what's called a Z-list celebrity at the lowest level. People behind the cameras, the people who write the words so that the actors look brilliant and they never mention us.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. You said, I want to do something that it had never been before.
I hear that every day.
So you have to be a time traveler, like Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, yeah.
This guy is the producer and also the writer
And director, yeah.
and director of the Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Aquí en México se llamó Viajeros en el Tiempo, ya se acordaron.
Despertó para encontrarse atrapado en el pasado, enfrentándose a espejismos que no eran de él mismo, impulsado por una fuerza desconocida a cambiar la historia y mejorarla.
What about that topic, the time travel?
Time travel.
Where do you, does that idea come from?
Okay, so that came from the creator of the show, Don Belisario, right? But you know, when you create a show, you need to find writers to come up with good stories. And so I was a young writer, had this opportunity, and I was trying to think of what would be a good episode to write. And I knew, because I took a lot of acting classes. I took writing courses, but also many acting classes, and my teachers always emphasized quality stories that had an inner life, depth. And so I thought, what could I create that had a great world that would be exciting and basically hook the viewer? So when I grew up, my mom gave me what's called an AMX, which had a 390 in it. It was the fastest production car in the history of America. And my mom goes, here, you want my car? I'm like, yeah, I'll take your car. I was 16 years old, so I got this rocket ship for a car. And so I grew up in Van Nuys. In Van Nuys, California had a very famous boulevard where people would cruise the boulevard in their cars, right? So it was like right out of American Graffiti, only not that old. So I knew about the world of cars and racing and all that. So that was the world I used. But I needed to find a heart to the story. So my sister had married someone, and I knew they were the wrong person. And my job was to drive her to the wedding. So I had this thought in my head, like I should just turn the car around and drive to the airport and put her on a plane and get her out of Los Angeles. But it was her life, her destiny, so I didn't do that. So that was the core idea, is that you love somebody who you know is going to marry the wrong person. So I combined those two elements, so a great plot with an inner story. And so Sam leaps into the body of a 15-year-old kid with braces who drives this car called the Mom-mobile. The mom gave him this car. And he souped the car up. He's a complete dork, right? And he likes to race cars on the boulevard. And so the story's about him trying to stop this girl who is the character's sister, not his sister, but the character, from marrying the wrong guy, because Sam knows the future, and he knows this guy is going to become an alcoholic, abusive alcoholic in the future. So here's the difference. Because Sam leaps around in time, he cannot remember his own life that well. And what he realizes very early on is that he had a sister. He forgot about her because of the time travel element. And he said, he remembers that she married the wrong person. And Al, his friend from the show, if you remember, says, well, Sam, that wasn't your fault. He goes, yeah, but if I don't stop her from marrying this guy, it will be. So what ended up happening was we shot the episode, and the show had been on for five episodes. And each week it had gone down in the ratings. And so this episode aired, and it was opposite a miniseries called The Winds of War, which was a $70 million miniseries on ABC. So the executive producer says, we're going to get killed in it, right? The show scored a 32, which beat Winds of War. It was one of the highest rated shows of the season. And they were all in shock, and all the executives at Universal, NBC were trying to figure out, why was this show successful? How could this happen, right? And Don said he realized it was because the audience liked the world, but they were touched by the story.
Exactly.
And it moved them because it touched, the idea is that when you tell a good story, the audience is not only watching your story, they're watching their own story.
They feel related for it.
Yeah. And so that although it was a ghost in Sam's life, it evokes the ghost within each person's life.
Y así, el Dr. Beckett se encuentra saltando de vida en vida, esforzándose por corregir lo que en el pasado salió mal. Esperando que cada vez que da otro salto, ese salto sea el salto a casa.
What happened the next day, and this is to encourage you if you're out there, I was just a story editor on the show. They called me up, they said, Don wants you in his office right now, get over here right now. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. And I got to the office and he said, I just got a letter from the president of NBC. And he says, read it. And I was terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen, right? Because we hadn't seen the numbers yet.
Yeah.
But the president of NBC had seen the numbers. And it was a smiley face. And it said, now I believe. And it said 22. And Don said, we just got picked up for a brand new season and you're now a producer on Quantum Leap. And it was like my life changed that day. So I say that, not to brag, but you can take it that way. I say that because I found the inner story is what helped me have a career. It wasn't coming up with cool plots, although you create an interesting world, right? It was finding something that was personal to me and then changing it a little bit and then putting that in my story so that people were touched by it. And that's what gave the story power. And from there, I kept working.
And then you go with a lot of projects like X-Files. You wasn't there. You wrote.
I was a writer and producer on X-Files.
Yeah.
Run. We have a situation.
I need you on this.
One man alone.
And also, you was in Star Trek with some episodes.
Yeah.
You know?
I would say the secret to all that is that, again, on the outside, it appears to be science fiction or supernatural, paranormal. It appears to be that way. That's the world. Why you love those stories is the inner story. It's about a character having some wounding, and out of that wounding, they have a ghost in their life. And that if a character in a plot is going after something, the ghost is haunting them. It's hunting them down, the thing they don't want to face, the thing they don't want to look at. And so that in life, when we have something traumatic happen to us, we try and push it down, we try and bury it. But what we bury ultimately will bury us unless we face it. Yeah. So in a great story, something has to happen where at some point the character realizes, I can't get that thing unless I face my inner opponent. Yeah. And that in tragedy, all the great tragedies, Shakespeare, King Lear, Othello, the character doesn't want to face their ghost. They don't want to face the thing that they're running from, and that they act in ways to not deal with that, and then they learn too late, and that the plot has already been set in motion. They can't stop the tragedy from happening.
And you put a very amazing example in your conference, like that is the movie Silver Lining.
Yeah.
Playbook.
Yeah.
Doc, I have one incident. I come home from work, I see my wife's in the shower. I pull the curtain back. So yeah, I snapped. Hey, Tiffany, this is Pat. You look nice.
Thank you.
I'm not flirting with you.
I didn't think you.
Why is that? Why that movie?
I love that movie because it has this incredible inner story. The problem with most films is they focus on the plot. And the secret, I'm going to give you a little secret right now, why we love movies, why we truly love quality films, is not the journey, the external journey, it's the inner story. It's the inner life of the characters. And that the goal that we're trying to help people understand is that if you just focus on plot, all you can do is have a bigger and bigger and bigger event. So in many films, that means more explosions, more explosions, more explosions. And it's empty. And that's, you know, those movies are made for children or the child in you. You can be 50, 60 years old and still love to watch things blow up, right? But a story that's going to really move you and stay with you is going to be something that is about the volcano inside the character. It's the explosion inside the character. But a great drama, a great comedy will reveal that we have our public self, the part that we show to the world, but beneath that is our private self. The part that we hide from the world. That's our private self. When we're alone, our dreams, our fantasies, that rich inner life of a character. Beyond that, we have what's called our blind self. And the blind self is the thing that we see in you that you cannot see in yourself.
Exactly.
And people around you, and that when people tell you something about yourself, you're like, that's not me. But it is, okay?
Yeah.
And then finally, in a great story, there's what's called the undiscovered self. And this is why we love great movies, is because we're watching what's called a psychological striptease. And veils are being pulled away through the story. These events come in and keep slamming into the character's defense mechanisms. And we get deeper and deeper into the psychology of a character. And at some point, toward the end of a story, is the undiscovered self. It's the part where the person realizes and turns to someone and says, I love you. I never knew I did. Or, my entire life you've been a bully to me and I'm leaving the family. Something that completely changes their life. And that's the explosion that we're looking for.
Don't let Tiffany get you in trouble. She's my friend. Why would you say that?
There's this dance thing. I can only do it if I have a partner.
Oh, I'm not gonna dance with you.
So is this the girl you wrote about?
You wrote about me?
She's fine.
She is my friend with an F.
A capital F.
If you come to the realm, if you're gonna pay money for a movie, you want more than just explosions. You want to feel something, and you want
more
things
than zombies.
Yeah, more than zombies. Yeah, more than zombies.
He hates a little the bad movies of zombies.
Well, here's the deal. I was actually, I told you, I was a zombie in Thriller, believe it or not, and that was a long time ago. And my hair was jet black.
Which one? Which one? Tell me.
I was the one chasing her up the stairway. Remember his girlfriend? So I was not a dancing zombie. You might look at me and say, I'm sure he's a dancer, and I'm not. Okay. But anyway. So that was a fun experience, and I just think there's so many movies, like zombie movies, vampire movies, that are fashion, and those are what we call cool. And I have a mentor who said that cool is the death of art, because cool is a mask, it's a facade. And you go out at night, you see people in clubs wearing, fashionable outfits and hats and all that stuff. They're putting on a false self. And that's okay. It's a costume, right? But we're looking for something beyond that. So zombie movies, I find, usually don't go deep. They're just about people that have no dialogue. They're like, ah! We have an opportunity to have amazing dialogue, and we're having people just grunt at each other.
Yeah.
So younger filmmakers are making zombie movies, but they have to grow up and they have to go beyond that and tell something better, I think.
Talking again about the Silver Lining playbook,
Right.
You have this combination, a good actor or an actress and an amazing script.
Right.
Because even the both characters, Jennifer Lawrence, they're both actors. Jennifer Lawrence was just in the Hunger Games, and Bradley Cooper was just in Hangover.
Right.
But now with this combination, you have nominations for the
Academy
Award.
Right.
You know? That's the clue to make the difference in your career.
Right. And also, we talked about earlier about the idea that, like, what's cool, that many young people want to make movies that are either cool or clever or cute, right? And that's the ego. The ego says, I'm young, I want to stand out, I've heard this phrase so many times, I want to do what's never been done before. I said, you know what, why don't you just do something good? If you could just make a good short film, that would be amazing, right? But they want to do something that's never been done before, right? But I say, when you do something in the realm of art or something that's a real movie, it's what you don't want to show, what you're afraid to show. So if I have a room full of writers, and these particular writers want to do this thing with all this action, it's kind of their ego. They want to show off what they can do. But there's other group who have something that's more internal or more personal, and they're afraid to write that. And I say that's the place you want to be when you start to write a movie. It's something that happened in your own life, somebody you care about, someone you love, someone you lost, and you take that kernel of an idea, and then you add your imagination. So the people that created Silver Linings Playbook, the writer, the original book, Matthew Quick, talked about that going to movies, going to the cinema, was a sacred experience, and the joy of going with his father and his grandfather into the theater. And he said good movies would heal his soul. He would walk out changed, and he wanted to create a story and hope that one day, someone would show up. And so the story is about hope, and so he ends up attracting David O. Russell, right? And David O. Russell had his own reason for wanting to make it, because David O. Russell's son has Asperger's syndrome. So those are people that are, as you may know, are highly intelligent, but they have problems with social cues. So the movie's about mental health, people that have mental health issues. And so the motivation of David O. Russell was, I wanted to make a movie about mental health, so my son would feel less alone in the world. So think about the motivation of those filmmakers. It wasn't about, I want to be cool and I want to be current, or I want to reveal the inner life of my son, or I want to realize the power of movies through the soul, right? And so they made a movie, a lot of it shot handheld. It's not a beautiful film, but the cinema style matches the emotions of the characters.
And with that, a lot of comedy in the way.
With tons of comedy. And I say, see, people tell me, like, what genre do you love? And I say, I love the human genre. And that's a combination of drama and comedy. And the filmmaker, for example, Dustin Hoffman, right, in The Graduate. It's a continuum of comedy and drama. They're not separated. Real life is full of it. If you think about your own life, it's full of comedy and drama. You told me between the break, he told me there's lots of comedy in his life. So that's what we're looking for, is to make that thing like, don't get caught up in genre, tell a real story. You know, it's not about trying to copy Quentin Tarantino. I tell my students, we already have Quentin Tarantino. He's doing a great job at what he does. We don't need another one. What is your story?
When you are with the new students of movies, what is the most biggest mistake that they made or they have in their brain for becoming filmmakers?
Right. I would say the first thing they do is they try and copy successful filmmakers. So I mentioned earlier, so many students a few years ago were all trying to be Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore, but they were all trying to do things like that. And then there's the trend of the zombie movies and the vampire movies. But if you think about it, if you're creating a work where everyone is doing the same thing, how smart is that? You may do something that gets attention for a short amount of time, but it's just like, you know, people like the Jonas Brothers for a short amount of time. I mean, I know you didn't have a poster up, but a lot of people do. And then those people turn on the Jonas Brothers, right? So in the same sense, if you're a filmmaker and you're doing what's trendy, people will leave you eventually. They'll go on to something else. And if you don't give them something that means more, then they're going to go away. What's interesting too is that getting students to look at their lives and look at the parts of them they don't want to show. The failure, the sadness, the heartbreak is oftentimes the source of a great story. There was a student we had in a course the other day, Tech Monterey, and he was 18 years old, and I got him to write a monologue about a girl that broke up with him. Simple story, and he started to cry. And what I loved about it is that he was not trying to be macho. He was trying to not cry, but he was trying to hold it in, but at some point, you know, this girl broke his heart. What was great about this kid is that he hadn't formed a false self yet. He hadn't put armor on yet. He wasn't fake. And I said to him, you know, I'm sorry that's happened to you, but this girl has now made you an artist. You know, you can now use this. And in this monologue, there were about 30 people in the room who had written and performing monologues. When this young man was finished, 3 girls got up and hugged him at the same time. Sitting there. And I turned to these boys and went, guys, you think being cool is the way to go? Look what's happening over here. Being vulnerable and human, that's the path. And they're like, oh my God, they're taking notes.
So if you're sad because you can't go to LA or to New York,
don't be sad. Please don't be sad.
Exactly, because Paul's here.
Yeah, and also Mexico City is beautiful.
Yeah.
I love Mexico.
If we want more information of your conference, where can we get?
Well, you can go to nyfa at edu.com.
Okay.
So nyfa.com, edu.com. Or person I work with, great guy in Mexico, Cesar Mercado. cmercado at nyfa.edu.
Okay.
And I got that right, finally.
Yeah,
right?
you can write to Mercado or go to the webpage for more information of this guy that give us a lesson, a free lesson now.
Free lesson, but you got to, if you want to be making films that are quality, you got to go to yourself. and not go to someone else. Go to yourself. That's the challenge.
Paul, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I know that you have a tattoo, machete, Danny Trejo style.
Yeah, I don't want to show it off because I want to keep my job.
Nice to meet you, man.
All right, thank you.
Señores de La Lata, nos vamos. Yo soy Alex Montiel. Pásela chido y nos vemos en el cine.
Órale, ¿qué pues?
Cómo la manejan, el miedo, todo eso lo vuelven un comercial para manipularte a ti. Las instituciones de Alcohólicos Anónimos o los que quieren, pues, curarse de esta enfermedad